The Big 12 is usually known for high-scoring offenses and good quarterback play, but good defense was the theme of the 2021 season. Is that going to change in 2022? I'm Stephen Lassen of All CFB 365. On this episode, we are going to rank the quarterbacks in the Big 12 for 2022 and examine what might be ahead for offense this year in the conference. Before we get into our rankings, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at AllCFB365. Before we give our rankings, we need to give our criteria, or at least explain our rankings and what's to come. When we're doing this ranking, it's a projection to the upcoming season, so we're not just basing these rankings off of 2021 or career achievements so far. We're trying to project ahead to the upcoming season while also considering what quarterbacks have done so far. So it's a mixture between what quarterbacks have done so far in their career, a projection, and also take into account the changes around them. This could be offensive coordinator, this could be scheme, this could be the talent around them. So we're trying to take into account everything and not just base these rankings on what's happened so far. We're trying to project ahead and tell you what's coming this year in the college football season. At number 10, we'll start with Hunter Dekkers of Iowa State. He's tasked with replacing one of the top quarterbacks in Iowa State school history in Brock Purdy. He's up there with Seneca Wallace and others in terms of top signal callers for the program. A little bit about Dekkers. He was a four-star prospect in the 2020 class. He's played in only 7 games over the last 2 years, so very limited experience, less than 50 pass attempts. On the positive side for Dekkers, he returns 3 starters on the offensive line, plus Xavier Hutchinson, one of the top receivers in the Big 12, is back this year as well. I think he's got potential to be a breakout candidate this year, that dual threat potential, plus the trust in Coach Matt Campbell, and not to mention offensive coordinator Tom Manning. I think the combination of those things could equal a breakout season for Dekkers, but he's number 10 largely just because he's unproven going into the 2022 season. Continuing with quarterbacks that could have a breakout season, let's go to number 9, Jalon Daniels of Kansas. A very positive end to the 2021 season. Kansas upset Texas. They played well against West Virginia and TCU, and a big reason why was the play of Daniels. In the last 4 games for Kansas, over 800 passing yards, 7 touchdowns to just 3 picks. The scoring average was well over 35 points a game in those last 4 contests after Kansas averaged only 15 points a game through their first 9 contests. So we saw the impact that Daniels had on the offense in the month of November. Obviously, with Lance Lappold and that staff having a full offseason to implement schemes and work with these players, Daniels and that Kansas offense should be ready to take a step forward this year. I think there's potential for him to finish much higher on this list at the end of the year if he continues to build off of a very promising end to the 2021 season. At number 8 on our list, it is Tyler Shough of Texas Tech. He's hard to rank because he's in a quarterback battle with Behren Morton and Donovan Smith. This is a job and a battle that is likely to go deep into fall practice for the Red Raiders. The winner of this quarterback battle is likely going to put up huge numbers. Zach Kittley is the new offensive coordinator. He was at Western Kentucky last year, Houston Baptist before that. Those offenses love to throw the ball around and put up huge points. Shough had an interesting 2021 season. He got off to a nice start for Texas Tech, completed around 70% of his passes in the first 4 games. Unfortunately, he suffered a collarbone injury and missed the rest of the year. So as an Oregon transfer, now operating basically in his 3rd different offensive scheme in the last 3 years, he's tough to rank. He's also in a quarterback battle, but as we saw last year with Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky, the quarterback in this scheme could put up huge numbers. So there is potential for Shough to easily succeed our ranking if he puts up big numbers in that offense this year. At number 7 on our list is another breakout candidate, and that is Blake Shapen of Baylor. Last year, he made a strong impression late in the season by putting up good numbers against Texas Tech. Also helped Baylor to win the Big 12 championship game by beating Oklahoma State, but he only has less than 100 passing attempts in his career at Baylor. In that limited time, good accuracy, not making a ton of mistakes. We know he's a good athlete from his high school career as a baseball player. Did, I think, a nice job of attacking kind of the middle of the field. We also saw that he has the confidence of the coaching staff. He won the quarterback battle in the spring over Jerry Bohannon, and of course, Bohannon transferred to South Florida. I think the hope with Shapen is, even with Baylor breaking in some new targets at receiver, I think there's hope that Shapen can give the passing game and Baylor's offense a little bit more there than Bohannon was able to give this offense last season. So Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator at Baylor, has done a nice job last season and even before at BYU, and I suspect that Shapen will take a big step forward this year as well. Continuing our theme of quarterbacks with upside, we go to number 6 with Max Duggan at TCU. The thing to keep in mind at TCU this offseason is change. There's a new head coach in Sonny Dykes. Last coach, Gary Patterson, was much more defensive oriented. Sonny Dykes, of course, had a strong background on offense. Duggan will have to compete with Chandler Morris for the starting job this fall. But when you look at Duggan's history, I think he's been a pretty solid player for TCU. Last season, he led the Big 12 with 12 completions of 40 plus yards, over 6,000 total yards in his career, and he battled a foot injury for a chunk of last season. So getting back to 100% in a friendly offensive scheme with some weapons around him, we could easily see Max Duggan putting up good numbers for TCU in a much different offense, but he will have to win the job over Chandler Morris, which is one of the reasons why we don't have him higher on this list. At number 5 on our list is Adrian Martinez of Kansas State. He is a transfer from Nebraska, and when you look back at his career at Nebraska, a very prolific and productive, over 10,000 total yards in 4 years with the Cornhuskers. However, I think a fresh start and a change of scenery is a good thing for Martinez, and certainly benefits Kansas State after losing Skylar Thompson. They needed a quarterback, and Martinez, with that experience, his dual threat ability, you put him in a backfield with Deuce Vaughn, and that is going to cause a lot of problems for defensive coordinators in the Big 12. The big question for Martinez, he's been productive, he's been experienced. The problem has been turnovers, 30 interceptions in 4 years at Nebraska, plus some issues with fumbling. If he can clean up those mistakes, there's a chance for him to challenge for all conference honors, in which should be an offense that suits him well for his last season in college. At number 4 on our list is Quinn Ewers of Texas, and there's no doubt about it, the word interesting sums up his career so far in college. He was supposed to be a high school senior last season, but reclassified into the 2021 recruiting class and then went to Ohio State. He played 2 snaps at Ohio State, transferred to his home state of Texas, where it's expected that he will be the starter this year. Of course, he still has to beat out Hudson Card in fall practice, but there's a lot to like here with Quinn Ewers, former 5-star prospect, one of the highest rated quarterbacks by some recruiting services in the modern era of college football recruiting. Of course, Steve Sarkisian, a very friendly scheme for quarterbacks, a quarterback guru. So I think there's a lot to like in terms of how he fits into this scheme. You also like the skill talent around him, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Nair, and of course Bijan Robinson. So we have Ewers at 4. The talent, the upside, and offensive scheme is there for him to climb this list by the end of the year. Of course, it is his first full time as a starter, and he has yet to attempt to pass at the collegiate level. So there are a lot of unknowns, but a ton of upside here for Ewers in his first season at Texas. At number 3 on our list is another transfer. It's JT Daniels of West Virginia. This is the third stop in JT Daniels' career. He started at USC as a starter in 2018, but suffered a ACL injury in the 2019 season opener. He transferred to Georgia in time for the 2020 season, but he wasn't healthy for most of the year and only saw action in 4 games. I think we like what we saw in those 4 games, averaged over 10 yards per attempt. But once again, in 2021, he was injured with Georgia, eventually gave way to Stetson Bennett starting. So now JT Daniels at West Virginia, another chance to capitalize on the potential and the talent that he has. He's also reunited with Graham Harrell, who was his offensive coordinator at USC in 2019. West Virginia brings back all 5 starters along the offensive line, some nice playmakers at receiver. So Daniels has experience in this scheme, also a solid supporting cast. And West Virginia, under Neil Brown, the strength of those teams have been on defense in recent years, but with Daniels transferring in and some of the potential for this offense, there's a chance that West Virginia flips that around this year, and offense is the strength of West Virginia. So I like the potential for Daniels in this offense under Neil Brown and Graham Harrell to sort of realize some of that potential this season, and that's why we have him number 3 on our list. At number 2 on our list, it's Dillon Gabriel of Oklahoma. Of course, we know that Oklahoma lost Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams to the transfer portal, so there was a significant need for a quarterback at Oklahoma for new head coach Brent Venables and, of course, offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby was Dillon Gabriel's offensive coordinator at UCF in 2019. There's plenty of familiarity with these two in terms of scheme, play calling style. Gabriel should be a pretty seamless fit at Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a track record of high scoring offenses going back to, of course, Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops. So I suspect that not too much will change on the scoreboard for the Sooners. You look at Gabriel's career at UCF. He missed most of 2021 due to injury, but very productive in the 26 games that he played, over 8,000 passing yards and 70 touchdowns. So there's a lot to like about his productivity, his fit in the offense. Of course, he is transitioning to a conference that will have better defenses week in and week out. So it will be interesting to see how he navigates that, but everything is there for him to finish number 1 on this list at the end of the year. At number 1 on our list is Spencer Sanders of Oklahoma State. He was first team All Big 12 in 2021, and we suspect that he will once again rank among the top quarterbacks in the conference. You could argue he's coming off one of his best seasons, if not his best season at Oklahoma State, through a career high in yardage and touchdown passes. Of course, the big question with Sanders has been, we see the arm talent at times, we see the mobility on the ground, over 600 rushing yards. The big question for him has always been the consistency and also the need to limit the mistakes. Last year, he threw 12 interceptions, and we saw the inconsistency at the end of the year. Threw 4 interceptions against Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, but had a strong performance with 4 touchdowns against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. So the key for Sanders is going to be this year, with Oklahoma State losing some pieces off a very good defense, it will probably be more on the shoulders of Sanders and that offense to carry Oklahoma State this year. So if Sanders continues to progress as a passer, continues to be dangerous on the ground with the dual threat ability, and cuts down on the mistakes and shows more week-to-week consistency, there's a strong chance that Sanders once again ends 2022 as the number 1 quarterback in the Big 12. There's our list, 10-1, ranking the quarterbacks in the Big 12 for this season. A theme for this conference is there's a lot of uncertainty. There's quarterbacks with potential, some breakout candidates for this year, the transfers, a lot of offensive changes. So this is an interesting league for quarterbacks overall. You see the 10-1 on the screen there. If you agree, disagree with our rankings, leave a comment. We'll be sure to check those out. And also, please subscribe here, all CFB 365. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at that handle as well.